They had Arthur Smith last season. They had basically no wide receivers like that should be on an NFL roster outside of DK Metcalf last year, and they were running their whole offense. And they were running their whole offense around 4 different tight ends and 2 different running backs, and their wide receiver 2 was like 25% of each tight end and Kenny Gainwell. So I also think Pittman is like basically just as good as DK Metcalf and is a better target earner. I think Metcalf will be used a little bit more to open up the field, but I think Pittman is a better like intermediate short area guy. And frankly, I that'll be my hot take, because I think Michael Pittman is the highest scoring wide receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers next year.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dynasty Points. Thank you for joining us in our small corner of the Dynasty internet space. If you are heading back to us here from another video, thank you for joining us. If you're new here, well, welcome in. Take a seat, sit down and relax as we discuss some very interesting and some very awesome NFL free agency news that has affected our Dynasty teams in a major way. We have a lot of moves to get to, so obviously we are not going to spend a ton of time on each one. This is more of our quick thoughts, early reactions. We're obviously going to have a ton of time to break these down as we go, but there are a lot of fun ones here, and some that maybe I'm more excited about than others. Maybe there's some that you, Jacob, are more excited about, and same with you, Ryan. So let's dive right in. It would be bad form to start with anything but Kansas City Chiefs running back. Still sounds weird to say. Kenneth Walker gets the big deal, worth up to $45 million. He's got 28.7 guaranteed. This was a spot that I had for Etienne more than I did Walker because I thought he would be cheaper. Great spot for him. I'll start with Jacob. How does this play out to you? Where's the early rankings looking like he's going to pop in for you? I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, I'm so pumped up about this one. Just from the real life perspective, especially, I thought this was exactly the move that the Chiefs should go out and spend up on. They're a team that, as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, is going to continue to see nickel and dime defensive coverages at one of the highest rates in the National Football League. You absolutely need a running back with home run speed and ability in that type of environment, who can actually punish teams for playing defensive shells with 5-6 defensive backs on the field. Ken Walker, one of the most efficient running backs in the National Football League, when he actually has positive yards before contact, he's going to have an opportunity to get that very consistently on the Kansas City Chiefs. You can say what you want about some of his vision issues or home run hitting issues, and sometimes that coming at the expense of success rate. But I think the Chiefs last year saw the extreme limitations of being a success rate oriented rushing attack, especially one that needs to be a home run hitting, because you can't just be a team that is accepting 5-yard chunks against really favorable boxes. Teams will give that to you every single time if the alternative is letting Patrick Mahomes go out and pass against favorable coverages. So I think that's an A+ signing for the Chiefs. It's definitely an A+ landing spot for Ken Walker. He has pass protection issues, so he's probably never going to be a true 3-down back in the very literal sense, but I think he can be very close. I think he can have a role like what Joe Mixon has historically had in his career, which is playing basically every single early down snap, having 60-70 targets accumulated over the course of those, and basically only coming off the field on obvious 3rd and 10 situations where you're probably just pass protecting anyways. I think he projects now as an early 2nd round redraft pick, and he's probably, I haven't got the chance to do a dynasty rankings update since these signings, but off the top of my head, I don't know, he's probably in the low like RB 7 to 10 range.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things here. Agree on the pass catching stuff. I do think that's going to be key for Walker's kind of shorter term, like redraft value. Like, are you ranking him in the early 2nd or the early 3rd? The difference between that is really how many passes do you think he's going to catch. I would lean optimistic on that personally. We have seen Walker kind of compile receptions, at least in 2024, on a team with a higher pass rate and a team with way more target competition than is likely going to be on the 2026 Chiefs. So yeah, as long as he is on the field for those kind of early down dropbacks, which the Chiefs love to do, I think he'll be just fine in that sense. So yeah, I am probably pretty similar to Jacob in terms of where I'm ranking Walker in Dynasty going forward. Him and James Cook are kind of who I'm wrestling between a little bit, right in that like RB7 versus RB8 range. I think Walker is a more potentially more fantasy friendly player, more fantasy friendly skill set. But we have just seen James Cook have a better fantasy career. We've seen him actually succeed in this landing spot. Like there's more of a proof of concept with James Cook, a little bit more stability there potentially. I think Walker might have like the higher fantasy ceiling from like an absolute perspective. So those two are going to be pretty close for me in Dynasty moving forward. And yeah, overall, I'm very happy. The only other thing I'll add is I have already seen the contrarianism of like Andy Reid never wants to run the ball. Like, is this really a good spot? Like the Chiefs never have a good run game. It's like, I'm old enough to remember when you wanted Andy Reid's running back, when it was Jamal Charles, when it
CEH went 101.
Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, when it was Charkandrick West being like the midseason waiver wire hero, like just things change quickly based on roster talent. This is clearly the Chiefs saying they want to get serious about running the ball, having that support in their offense. So yeah, it's hard for me to, as much as I love being contrarian, I'm not doing it on this one.
So while Ryan was talking, I pulled up my running back rankings. He's obviously behind in Dynasty for me, Bijan, Jameer, and Jameer, Gibbs, and Genty. I have like right now, I think pre-free agency, I'll probably change these around. I had that next tier of like 4 through 8 being Etienne and Taylor and Hampton, and James Cook was in there. I think Ken Walker belongs in that group. I think I'd probably like, I don't know, wherever Jonathan Taylor and James Cook are, I'd probably put Ken Walker in the same tier. However you want to rank them is kind of up to you.
Oh, man. I've been sitting here trying to find the running back that was super hyped up in 2019, and I finally found Darwin Thompson, remember, was even a favorite in the Dynasty community because he was the Andy Reid rookie running back. Let's not forget, it runs that deep. I think I'm going to be more aligned with you guys on his overall ranking. I was initially going to put him way higher than that, but I think you kind of sold me, Ryan, on the James Cook thing. I have James Cook RB6 currently. I'll probably pencil him in probably in the 7 or 8 spot. He and Taylor are probably two players I'm going to go back and forth with a lot, but let's talk market report favorite, Travis Etienne. Ryan, I love this spot for Etienne. What's your lean?
Yeah, I think short of him staying in Jacksonville, this is about as good as you could have hoped for, or short of going to the Chiefs, of course. Yeah, the Saints are a totally fine landing spot. Kellen Moore is always going to run. He's always at least going to run a lot of plays, which is good for fantasy football. And he generally has had competent offenses. Alvin Kamara is still there. They did restructure him a week or so ago, so potentially he stays on the team. I don't know that is necessarily locked in. I wouldn't really view Kamara as like a huge deal for Etienne, though. I think, honestly, he kind of slides in right where he was last year in terms of fantasy, kind of a high-end RB2 type without like a ton of backfield competition that really actually matters. The nitpick you can make kind of immediately as well. Tyler Shuck was very active around the goal line. He was always running it inside the 10. They were using him on so many designed runs at the end of the year there. But I mean, that was also when the Saints just did not have any running backs for the final 6 to 8 weeks of the season thereabouts. So I don't know that necessarily carries into 2026. So I think the scoring opportunities for Etienne are gonna be at least fine. I don't think that's like the end of the world or anything. So yeah, he's basically just stays where I had him in Dynasty, I think. I had him just below like the Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams sort of tier. I still think he's roughly like a weighted coin flip in terms of outscoring those guys this year. Probably a little bit more likely to hold on to his job for multiple years now with the contract. So he's in that range. High-end RB2-ish in redraft. I'd imagine like round 3, round 4 somewhere is where he lands there. It's kind of a shrug of the shoulders to me. I know everybody wants to have like a huge Travis Etienne take or a huge Bashal Tutin take, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But yeah, there's just nothing like that shocking or that like ground shaking for me here.
I think I'm going to have him positioned ahead of RJ Harvey. I'm just not sure where that's going to fall. He's currently, if I look at my trade tier sheet in the Fantasy Points Discord, which you can get access to right now for free. It will not always be like that, but it is right now. If you're interested, you can go and check that out. Update coming here in the next day or so. But I have Harvey sitting around RB 18, so Etienne sitting in and around RB 22. I'm probably going to be moving Etienne up, but Jacob, I'm interested to hear your take. I also am very sad. My initial take was that Kamara was going to change his tune about retiring if the Saints let him go and join Sean Payton in Denver just to be one more year with his boy, go play in the playoffs. But we have more free agent news that kind of nixed that, if you would. So where's your lean here with Etienne after the signing?
This one I like less than the Walker one for real life. I had my pre-free agency preview piece up and went through a lot of the advanced metrics. And for Etienne, for another season consecutively, his second half really fell off, and he ended up with a not very pretty chart. So I think it's an overpay for the Saints. But I think for fantasy, it's going to be quite successful. We've seen running backs have success. Everyone has success in Kellen Moore offenses. He tends to run high play volume. I think he's a pretty good play designer. And they're going to be losing Kamara. The only guys left on the roster will be probably whichever two they don't cut out of Devin Neal, Kendre Miller, and Audric Estime. None of those are very imposing. You can pick nits in Etienne's efficiency. You can pick nits in his pass blocking. You can pick nits in his pass catching. But like, if he's going to be there at $13 million a year, he's going to be the guy that they give the rock to over and over again. I think it's a really bad real life football decision. I think he's going to be a very easy fringe RB1, RB2.
Saints backfield was led by Kamara last year at 9.3 points per game. Obviously, we're expecting that to go way up here with a more explosive player and Etienne. I'm really more in for the pass catching. More than Kamara. That's
true.
I'm willing.
Even I'm not hitting that hard, Jacob.
Yeah, Ryan Heath is more explosive than Kamara, I think.
Oh my!
I don't know. I was out drinking on Saturday. My stomach was more explosive than Alvin Kamara.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, it's pretty well over for. But we're looking at
I view him basically like Josh Jacobs at this point. Like I think that he is overvalued by the NFL, but I have no concerns about his touch floor. He's going to play as a total workhorse. I don't think he's like good enough to get like in the truly elite tier of scoring, but he's going to be like probably a roughly neutral FPOE guy, and he's going to have like a 16-point workload. So I think he's going to be like firmly in contention to be RB 7 to 14, depending on how many touchdowns he gets. Is how I would view him.
That's right. A 15.6 point per game player last year. And then he had a stretch towards the end of the year, right? From week 11, it was like 19 points, 20 and a half, dud in week 13, but then 21, 31 and a half, 16 and a half, and then a okay, but not groundbreaking 11.2 in the championship weekend. Like, he has the big spike week ability. It's just going to come down to touchdowns. There was the Tyler Shuck rushing touchdown thing, which was a little bit concerning, but Ryan, you kind of pointed out, they didn't have anyone else at the time, so I'm thinking that's probably just going to see that role go to Etienne with the money. I mean, I have it at $52 million. I couldn't really lock down the guaranteed, but that's a nice payday for Etienne. Let's jump to probably one of the more surprising signings, and one of the reasons why I'm weary of day 3 backs, but Kenneth Gainwell actually gets 10 guaranteed, $14 million over 2 years. He was great for you as a free flex option last year. If you have him, you're probably still happy. I'm not buying after this, but I was already kind of concerned with Bucky Irving. Now I'm more concerned, let's say, but I want to hear if you guys can change my mind. Jacob?
I mean, they were going to sign someone because Bucky was currently their only running back on the roster. So it's an example of, I think there's always a widespread phenomenon in the fantasy community to think that teams can enter the season with literally one running back. But Gainwell is definitely a more annoying signing than it could have been. And we'll see what they do with their third running back slot, because again, they do need to fill out a depth chart. He's basically, I think, a slightly better version of Rachaad White, or at least he was a better version of that last year. Whether that was kind of a total fluke because we'd never seen him bring that level of juice before, or whether that's just what he's going to be from now on, who knows? I expect him to play more or less the Rachaad White role, which is basically every third and long. They did use Bucky more last year in the 2-minute drill. We'll see how that gets split. And Gainwell showed, at least in last season, that he has the juice to be an insurance policy RB2, split in some on early downs if you need. It's interesting to me. He got more money than Tyler Allgeier. So I think that shows they were more looking at filling the Rachaad White pass catching, pass protection role than they were looking at a rushing supplement. If it's just the two of them and like some clearly nobody as the third back, I still think Bucky can get there playing on early downs quite a bit. If they do add a third guy where you start siphoning the high value touches from both ends, like it was near the end of the year, then I'm concerned, because I'm not really concerned about Bucky losing goal line work to Kenny Gainwell. It's the pass catching side. But we'll see what they do with their other running back slot. And I would get more on alert.
Yeah, Jacob laid it out pretty well. I would say similar. It really just does come down at this point to whether Bucky is in at the goal line. He largely wasn't last year. I forget the exact stat, but it was something like 0 goal line carries or 0 carries inside the 5 through the entire season. So that's definitely concerning. But yeah, we kind of just have to wait and see. I have been, I would say, lower on Bucky than the market for the past few months for basically this reason. My thought was, it seems like I think he's a great runner. It seems like he's viewed as a guy that can't sustain like a full NFL workload. I don't think the injuries helped with that this past season. And yeah, so far what we've seen, the team seems to agree, but we'll see. If there is legit no third running back, I'm going to move him up. But it could also be like a total nothing signing, like post training camp or something, where in August and it's like, oh God, they signed Kareem Hunt or whatever to take the goal line carries. I don't know who it would be, but yeah, that's what I would look out for. That's what I'd be a little bit afraid of. But yeah, he's my dynasty RB11, kind of right next to Travion Henderson, just the guys that are explosive and fun and good in theory, but that I just don't exactly know what to do with for fantasy.
I currently have him at 14, so I'm not sure where this is going to have him ending up. I think you're right. I think I want to see what maybe they draft somebody, another day 3 back. That's probably best case scenario in my opinion, but yeah, we'll see what happens with Bucky. I've been on team sell for Bucky for quite a while, and I think you still should be. But I'm also on team buy for Kenneth Gainwell. Like, he was deceptively good last year, way more than people wanted to. It took a long time for people to adjust that Kenny Gainwell was actually scoring well, 12.6 points per game. And again, you talk about that same run near the playoffs, 16.2, 19.6, 23.8. He can ball. So I'm buying this Kenny Gainwell. He's going to be a later round draft target for me, especially in 0 RB type builds. I actually really like that. Let's go with 2 more running backs, probably a little quicker for me. The J.K. Dobbins stuff is pretty easy. We can cover that really fast. I like the role for him. We've seen reports, Ryan, you said that they're still hunting for more running back help because, of course, Sean Payton is. Why wouldn't he be? I think he kind of just slides right back into the role he had last year, which is very fantasy friendly. Kind of a risky flex play for Dynasty. I'm leaning more towards a sell for both him and RJ Harvey, but I want to hear what you guys have. So hit me with it, Ryan.
Yeah, so this is just from what Ben Albright tweeted today. I find Albright to be a pretty reliable source on things regarding the Broncos, not a reliable source on other things.
Relationship advice?
On anything outside of Broncos football coverage. Would maybe look elsewhere. But yeah, what he said was the Broncos were pursuing another free agent running back, but that the price got too high, which I assume means that they were after either Etienne or Walker, for that to make any sort of sense. So they ended up going cheaper, going with Dobbins, but that they are still likely looking to reinforce the running back room in the draft. That could mean a lot of different things. It could just mean a day 3 pick. As we've talked about on this program, there are not that many running backs in this draft class that would actually scare me, or that I think would actually deserve work or take work away from the combination of Dobbins and Harvey. So with that in mind, kind of ruling out Jeremiah Love and thinking it's, I don't know, could they go Jadarian Price in round 2 or something? That would be weird, but possible, I guess. But outside of that, I kind of see this as a win for RJ Harvey, at least relative to how we were feeling about him a week ago, when it was the Broncos are after every big ticket running back and Harvey's definitely going to lose his job. To me, this is as close to status quo as you kind of could have assumed. Unfortunately, status quo when Dobbins was healthy was that RJ Harvey was a backup. But he was at least making some explosive plays. He was scoring touchdowns. I don't think they totally hate him or anything. It could be a scenario where if it's only the 2 of them, Harvey takes over the workload as the season goes on. Dobbins, same type of bet. He's the most injury-prone running back in the National Football League, the most injured running back the past 5 years or something like that. So this could absolutely still work out for Harvey in 2026. I guess I'm surprised that I'm speaking more positively about RJ Harvey now than I expected I would be. But I think that is kind of where we're at. There are a lot fewer off-roads here, I think, for the Broncos to totally nuke Harvey's projection for 2026 at this point. Because it sounds like they're done in the free agent market. A Rico Dowdle would have been probably worse for RJ Harvey if they had signed him than Dobbins. I'd have been more afraid of Dowdle probably. Rachaad White would have been a little bit more redundant, probably a little less afraid of him. But yeah, it could have been way worse for Harvey is what I'm saying.
Yeah, their plan A was Travis Etienne. I guess then they also tried on David Montgomery, so it definitely could have been worse. I think that we saw last year, some good stuff with Harvey, particularly in the passing game, was really effective there. Had a few breakaway rushes that were pretty interesting, but for the most part, just really struggled on a down-to-down basis with consistency with getting what was blocked. And I think we saw that in the playoffs without Dobbins, where they just weren't relying on the run, frankly, at all in a snow game. And then before that against the Buffalo team that just gets gashed every single week on the ground. But I think that made it pretty darn clear of where they viewed Harvey, at least at this point in his development, was just not being a guy they felt comfortable giving the rock to 20 times a game on the ground. I agree. I don't think they hate him. I just think that they currently trust him in a specific role. And the Dobbins signing contains him to that role as a week 1 projection, but I think it is at least not the type of signing that completely blockades him from proving himself if he starts to look better, if he starts to look more consistent, and maybe the Broncos change their mind over time, or Dobbins gets hurt again, which sadly happens quite frequently to J.K. Dobbins. I do think they're going to add another back to the draft. I don't care. I think every back in this draft was horrible. So I'm not really that concerned about draft ads for anyone outside of Jeremiah Love. Like, I think a big thing, I'm just as a unit, we don't know who it's going to be obviously yet, but like whatever running backs are getting their spot challenged by whatever running backs get drafted in rounds 2 through 4 of the NFL draft in a way that impacts their price, I'm just buying whatever of those veteran running backs are challenged. So we don't know who that's going to be yet, but like whoever's doorstep Jadarian Price lands on, whoever's doorstep Emmett Johnson lands on, Mike Washington, I just don't give a shit. And I'm going to be drafting the guys that they're up against. I think these guys stink. So I think it's definitely not like rocket ship emoji for Harvey the way it is for some other young backs we can talk about, like Bashal Tutin perhaps. But it's at least like he's out of critical condition. He's alive. If you have the asset, you can do something with it.
That's right. And I just want to point out my favorite landing spot in Jacksonville is Rachaad White. So I'm still counting.
Also my favorite landing spot. I'm praying for that every day.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
I don't want to like draft. I was just on with Davis before this show. And like, I don't want to spend my summer holding hands with the projectable volume bros drafting Bashal Tutin. I only want to be hanging out with like the actual truthers. So like, I don't want it to literally just be Tutin, LeQuint Allen, and nobody. Because like now that brings too many people to the party. I want like a running back that I don't believe in to sign there to keep the price in check. So I'm hoping for Rachaad White especially because
I don't think Rachaad White's going to keep
of him.
I don't. That's so hard.
I think you would keep the price. No, there's a lot of people out there that would be like happy to suppress the price for Rachaad White. I want him, or I want Aaron Jones. I would love if he could sign there. Just, I don't know. Come on, Jacksonville, sign some dusty running back for me, please. Seattle would make the most sense to me. Like what? Because they're the defending Super Bowl champion, and their Week 1 starter as of today is George Holani. So like.
Yeah.
Something's got to be done there. They're not drafting Jeremiah Love. Pick 32.
That makes them like Twitter's favorite team for being smart for hashtag not paying running backs, though. They're like,
I'm just glad that I all the credit in the world to Seattle for winning a Super Bowl. I still disagree on what they think Kenneth Walker is, but like, I'm just so happy that they actually remain consistent in their devaluation of Kenneth Walker and let him walk. Like, I would have been so tilted if they treated him like a change of pace back all season just to then hand him $15 million a year. I would have lost my mind. So I'm glad that they at least remained consistent in their view of Kenneth Walker by letting him be free.
Yeah, and see, here I was with the Rachaad White thing, just hoping I get another like 10 points per game season out of him, hopefully, with like a couple of games higher than that. And I mentioned Rachaad White, and it went the complete other way. So I will again be praying for you, Rachaad White, to please score me 10 to like 11 points per game. Just one more time.
Washington is still out there for him. I think
that's true.
Makes a ton of sense.
That's true.
Because
you forget
the thing with Washington
Jacory.
is like, if Love makes it to 7, he's not making it past 7. But they can't depend on Love being there. So I could see them not wanting to spend like $8 million a year on Rico Dowdle and then being like, shoot, we just burned that money because we're gonna draft Jeremiah Love. But like, you can draft Rachaad White and then still draft Jeremiah Love and be like, well, like, third downs.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I think Love is a New York Giant, which I think is hilarious. But I think
he's a Titan.
Destiny. You think he's a Titan?
I think he's a Titan.
Interesting. I think I really think he's a Giant, but I think Titans would be fun as well.
I think if he gets past, I think once he gets to 4, I'm just picking every team to take him. So if he gets to 4, I think the Titans are taking him. If he gets past the Titans at 4, I do think the Giants would take him at 5. If he got past both, I think that the Commanders would take him at 7. I feel like one of those 3.
Okay. I think Titans are more a lock for either a wide receiver or a tackle just to buoy their
They don't
Cam
need wide
Ward
receiver.
stuff,
They just gave $80 million to Wan'Dale Robinson.
We're going to talk about that too here in a minute. But we got one more running back we can quickly talk about here with Tyler Allgeier. He got a 2-year contract. This is actually a lot lighter than I thought that Allgeier was going to get. This almost feels like a prove-it deal that could end up with an extension tacked on after year 1 if he performs really well. Up to $12.25 million, I think, for Allgeier. We obviously know he's limited as a pass catcher, but we saw him be able to produce with a starting job in Atlanta in year 1. Obviously, you draft Bijan Robinson, you're playing backup for the most part. But Allgeier played an annoying amount for Bijan managers. I think my biggest reaction to this is it kind of just seals the end for Trey Benson. They restructure James Conner to come back and then spend money on Allgeier after letting DeMarcado walk. This just to me signals that they just don't believe in Trey Benson to me. But this sucks to me. I recorded a mini pod on Sunday talking about how happy I was that I might get one more year of fat-ass running back extraordinaire James Conner, only to have Allgeier come in, another fat-ass RB favorite of mine, just to come in and seemingly take that starting job, I imagine, with Conner more in the insurance role. But how do you guys view him? Any change? To me, he just feels like kind of a low-end RB2 at best. But I'm interested to hear what you guys have, because that offense right now is not shaking out to be hot sizzling with their Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew tandem at quarterback. So, Jacob, what do you have on Allgeier?
This team's going to be horrific. Like just awful. I mean, I know that everybody enjoyed the Jacoby Brissett like PPR spam experience last year. It wasn't good. He wasn't good. I'm tired of people pretending that he was good. It was like a completely non-functional team that would get housed by 30 every week, and then they would compile a bunch of garbage time points in the fourth quarter. But it's not like they were accomplishing anything. Jacoby Brissett's EPA for dropback was materially lower than Kyler Murray's, even on the exact same team, same year. So they're going to be, I think, one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think they want to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, to be honest with you. So Tyler Allgeier, I think, is like clearly the ostensible starter here. We don't know what James Conner's pay cut was. It's always mysterious when they do he took a pay cut. Nobody reports what the pay cut was. So I'm guessing, based on the context clues, it was a substantial one. I'm guessing it was they gave him a little bit more than they would have had to pay him by cutting him, and they kept him around as an insurance policy. Trey Benson is apparently still rehabbing from this mysterious meniscus injury that never got reported on because the Arizona Cardinals are a Stalinist state. So I just think that they have two really unreliable backs, and Allgeier is going to be the guy. But like, how useful is the early down only starter on one of the worst teams in the National Football League? Like, probably not that useful. There's going to be a lot of games where Tyler Allgeier has 9 carries, 31 yards, no receptions, no touchdown. And you're like, wow, crazy. Like the starting running back with all this bit of volume did absolutely nothing. It's like, well, they were down 21-3 at half. And so he played 7 snaps the rest of the game. So I don't even know who the third down back is. Like, Conner is hurt and didn't play that role since like he was in Pittsburgh. Benson played it for a couple of games last year, but I don't know. I could even see Benson or Conner being cut, to be honest. And they bring in like another dedicated third down running back. I think the whole team is a mess. I think Allgeier, the move for me with Allgeier is like, it seems cluttered right now. I think we're going to get offseason hype that more clearly entrenches him as the starter. And I think that's when you sell, because I think his price is going to rise. But I do think that once we get to week 4 and we're like, oh, like 12 between the 20s carries on a team that averages 15 points per game is useless, then you're going to realize that being a starter doesn't matter. Like, think about how bad it was rostering like Michael Carter as the starter last year on the Cardinals or whatever. It's just wasteland.
Yeah, the allure with them with Conner was that he did catch passes, right? Like, that was it was him and Kyler opened up the offense, and Kyler would check it down.
And they were like a real team then.
Right. And even last year, right, when James Conner was playing, he was producing, he was giving you points, and at least at flex plus territory. But Allgeier just feels like a younger redraft plus type player for me. And I think you're right. I'm willing to. You're going to see the first couple of photos in training camp with Allgeier, right? And he's gonna have the big thighs, and it's gonna be thigh season on Twitter, and you just send him away. As soon as you can get that bump up in thigh season, you just send him away, in my opinion. Ryan, anything to add, or should we move on?
Yeah, Tyler Allgeier will always benefit from the Braylon Allen fallacy, which is what I think we should call this phenomenon going forward.
AJ Dillon was first, so
AJ Dillon may be a better namesake for that one, whatever we want to go with.
And I blame Michael Turner. Because you guys remember, former 5 for 5 answer.
Really good example of this.
Michael Turner was the thigh god. Who happened to be like in the Allgeier situation where he was a backup and ends up going and being a starter, and he was awesome. And now I blame Michael Turner. You are a GOAT and Madden legend from that episode in 5 for 5, but I blame him for the thigh thing, and then it was reborn with AJ Dillon. So I blame those two.
Yeah, so whoever we blame, Allgeier, I think, is going to suffer a similar fate. I largely agree with what the two of you have said, so I'll just speak in terms of rankings. I had him at the RB 42 with like the Rachaad Whites and the Jonathan Brookses and like just the high value handcuffs, the Dylan Sampsons. He will move up from here just because he's an ostensible starter, but not like that far. He's going to be for me with like Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, like those types, like a fringe top 32 dynasty running back, but realistically, who cares? Should be nobody. So yeah, I do think that wait until the offseason hype to sell is just correct.
All right, that's it for the running backs. I think it's time we pivot to wide receiver, because there's not a whole lot of action in the tight end and quarterback thing. That'll be at the very end. There's only like really 1 to 2 guys to really get into. Let's talk about the receivers, because there are 4 major wide receiver signings today that I want to get to, and I'm sure all of you listening and watching, which thank you for that, want to get to as well. So let's kick it off with your guy here, Jacob. He came home. Alec Pierce, massive contract. You got the shirt already. I'm actually impressed with that. I love that. Don't love the price though, with $116 million going to Pierce. That's $60 million guaranteed. However, on the mini podcast I released the day we're recording this, which is March 9th, I did mention do not get sticker shock with wide receivers. I'm going to say that again, obviously, with these prices. Wide receiver is the most sticker shock position in football, in my opinion. I guess maybe next to quarterback, but everyone just kind of expects it. We did this with Christian Kirk. We do this every year. There's seemingly 1 to 2 wide receivers. We go, what is happening? And I just think it's the new normal with wide receivers. I think Pierce is the 9th highest paid wide receiver as of right now in AAV, but he'll be like the 14th most by next year. So it's just how wide receiver works. There's a couple of extensions from franchise tag players like Pickens, who's going to blow this number out of the water, in my opinion. JSN needs a new contract. I just feel like we're not really going to be talking about the Alec Pierce contract that much in terms of the AAV. So be wary of sticker shock. But Jacob, this obviously hits home for you. The Colts going crazy with the Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce run it back theory.
Yeah, I mean, I hate everything about how they've handled this offseason. I think I've been more than vocal enough on Twitter about what I would have done, which is I would have placed the franchise tag on Alec Pierce, which would have paid him somehow less money than this on a 1 year, but more importantly, would have leveraged him to, I think, negotiate a much lower contract than this if he didn't actually have the opportunity to negotiate with any other teams who could bid the price up. You could have leveraged the tag to, I mean, possible to say what number, but I think very reasonably get him more in the 20 to 25 range than the 25 to 30 range. And the reason I would have done that is because I would have had zero interest at all in paying $37 million to Daniel Jones this year. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, I'm willing to bet that there has already been a long-term deal signed by the Colts and Daniel Jones. We are recording this on Monday afternoon. I'm I'm extremely confident that by the time you're listening to this episode, they've announced a long-term deal. I don't know what those terms are, but it sounds like it's just a matter of minutes until that gets actually announced. And I expect it'll be probably in the $40 million AAV range. I think that's nonsense. I think that they should have clearly gone for the Kyler Murray Tua Tagovailoa veteran minimum sweepstakes, use the extra money to either keep Pittman along with Pierce or go after Trey Hendrickson or another pass rusher. Anyways, what's done is done. For fantasy, they do lose Pittman here. He goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers in a trade, which is really a cap dump to retain Pierce. And so I do think it's a better fantasy situation than maybe people think. Daniel Jones was leading a very good offense last year. I think that Shane Steichen remains one of the best offensive schemers in the league, and you vacate Pittman's targets and routes. I expect you'll see Pierce probably receive a little bit more intentionality outside of some of the deep routes. They already did last year incorporate him a lot more into the intermediate passing game. And otherwise, I think you'll see more routes for downs. I don't know if you'll see him getting like a full 12 personnel treatment. I think his size is just too limiting as a blocker, but you'll probably see him be integrated more into two wide receivers sets. And then otherwise, I expect it'll be like some camp battle between Ashton Doolin and a guy they take in the third round for the opposite outside wide receiver slot. It's, I think, really weird to think that Alec Pierce got $116 million. And I don't know how fantasy viable he is at all. But he's probably like a wide receiver 3-4 in our game.
Right. Last year, I traded what ended up being the 212 for him as a flex option. And I really liked Alec Pierce at that price. I think he had that, very much 20-point upside type play because he is the deep shot kind of wide receiver. I don't think he's just that either. I believe his route tree can definitely expand. But I was happy paying that 212 price at the time. Now he's got the contract. You obviously expect it's going to be hype season for him, but I'm weary to pay the first round pick price tag that I know is coming. Ryan, how do you feel about Alec Pierce? Is he moving significantly up in the rankings? How are you handling it?
Yeah, I feel about how I did before. I think it's probably a win for him that he stays in the system where we've seen him succeed. I think like frequently an issue with kind of this tier of free agent wide receiver is the ones that get to free agency are generally not the like most ultra talented all around wide receivers that will succeed in any situation. So like keeping him where he's at is probably good for him. I would certainly rather like roster Alec Pierce at what he's going to be valued at or what his ADP will be now compared to if he went to the Patriots and he gets all the hashtag vacated targets and you have to take him in round 5 in redraft or something like that. I definitely prefer this world to that one for Pierce. In terms of where he ranks, before this, I had him at the wide receiver 35 in Dynasty. That feels about right still, honestly. Maybe he gets a small bump up above like some of the like the Ricky Pearsalls, like the kind of the losers of free agency, get maybe approaches like the wide receiver 30 range for me in Dynasty. But yeah, he is what he is. He's a really good deep threat. He, at least last year, was extremely scheme sensitive. Put up all of his big weeks pretty much against single high looks and defenses that deployed those more often than others. So that's something to watch out for in DFS or setting your weekly lineups or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on Pierce. I'm noticing a theme. I feel like so many of these are very anticlimactic compared to what we expected. Like we got Ken Walker to the Chiefs, and almost every other signing has felt very like, oh yeah, that's kind of what we expected, or that's about the same as it was.
I feel the same way. Like Alec Pierce to New England would have blown up Twitter way more than even at this same price tag, people would have not scoffed at it as much. I feel like if this was in New England, where you get the Drake May bump like every other player around him gets, except for Ramondre Stevenson, apparently, my actual GOAT. But instead, he goes back to the Colts, and it's kind of same old, same old. I think you're right. It's just kind of what was expected. I do think there's an opportunity for him to grow. I am not Mr. Follow the Money, so I'm not saying that. I think they're more incentivized to do that. Now, the other part of this, people are celebrating for Josh Downs because obviously Pittman gets traded to Pittsburgh, who then gives him a massive extension, and it's immediately, wheels up for Downs. I'm not of that ilk, let's say. I'm not immediately assuming they're slamming him into 12 personnel like they were, but there's a possibility he's at least much more flex capable. I just know that there's a good chance someone in the comments might want us to talk about Josh Downs. So there you go. There's some Josh Downs for you here. With that, let's go to the other wide receiver that I just mentioned, Michael Pittman Jr. Jacob, you and I disagreed on this a little bit. I kind of lulled at this because it's on the Steelers. The Steelers of late, post Big Ben, haven't exactly been a booming hive for wide receiver scoring outside of like Deontay Johnson, let alone more than one wide receiver. You seem to like this a lot more than I do. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback to get big seasons out of like Michael Pittman Jr. and DK Metcalf, let alone both of them on the same team. For me, I liked him much better in Indy and his role there with Steichen, but you are actually a little bit higher on this. So I'm going to wait for you to try to change my mind here on Michael Pittman Jr.
It's not a great spot. Like, if he went to like New England or something, that would be, I think, much better. If the Bills did this trade instead of the DJ Moore one or whatever, that would be clearly way better. But I think he'll be a fantasy starter again next year. He's always a fantasy starter. He's never a league winner, but he loves to live in the wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 range. I don't see a reason why that's not possible here. Pittsburgh situation, I think, will be much more fantasy friendly for the wide receiver position this year. They had Arthur Smith last season. They had basically no wide receivers like that should be on an NFL roster outside of DK Metcalf last year, and they're running their whole offense. Yeah. And they're running their whole offense around 4 different tight ends and 2 different running backs, and their wide receiver 2 was like 25% of each tight end and Kenny Gainwell. I think that they will have a much more normal NFL offense this year. Mike McCarthy has always ran his offense at a reasonably fast pace. Aaron Rodgers likes to run it really slow, so we'll see how that balances out, but I do expect more play volume than the Arthur Smith iteration. They'll also probably have a higher pass rate by a lot than the Arthur Smith iteration because of both the coordinator change and the fact they have 2 actual NFL quality starting wide receivers on their team now. So I also think Pittman is like basically just as good as DK Metcalf and is a better target earner. I think Metcalf will be used a little bit more to open up the field, but I think Pittman is the better like intermediate short area guy. And frankly, I that'll be my hot take because I think Michael Pittman is the highest scoring wide receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers next year.
Yeah, my thoughts on Michael Pittman Jr. as they normally are who cares? I agree. I agree he's better than DK Metcalf. I'll join you guys on that one. Certainly for fantasy, I'd say, but yeah, it's kind of the Jakobi Meyers corollary of like you're topping out at the mid-range wide receiver 2, which just never moves the needle. But yeah, this is fine. It's not like the worst financial decision for every party involved. I've seen.
I think
worse.
It was a great real life move by the Steelers. With the wide receiver market, Pittman at like $19.6 million per year to me is like completely reasonable value. He basically got the same contract Wan'Dale Robinson got. I understand that Wan'Dale has PPR value, but I think he has like very limited real life value as a 5'7" underneath scam who is like an extreme run game liability. That contract is bananas. I guess we'll talk about it next. And like Pierce, I think is a better real life impact player than Pittman, but not by that much. And he gets $10 million more on more years and more guarantees. And like, I think Dobbs is a similar-ish player to Pittman. I think he's worse. And I bet he's going to get more money or similar money. So as far as the Steelers trading basically nothing to lock him up on, I think, a totally reasonable contract. Like, I think the Bills should have done this also instead of the DJ Moore deal that they did.
The wide receiver that you, Ryan Heath, were all aboard in terms of buying here recently on the Fantasy Points Dynasty YouTube channel, your show with Theo Greminger and Jakob Sanderson here. I will say the only thing that gives me pause on this deal is the curse of injuries with San Francisco, and now you're hoping that Mike Evans can beat the odds and beat the history with that franchise and stay healthy and play good football. The only other thing too, this looks really exciting until you realize that Trent Williams is going to be probably off this roster, and the splits with Williams and without it is staggering. So that is a deeper concern to me than just the initial signing, but you have to think that this is like an upper tier landing spot for Evans.
Yeah, this is, I mean, after the Bills did their thing with DJ Moore, this was about as good as you could have hoped for Evans. Yeah, I'm very happy if you sent a second for him in the past week like we've been advocating. You should also be very happy. Really great shot to be like a borderline fantasy wide receiver one this year, much like we saw from Davante Adams. He can kind of be the touchdown maven type. And also Mike Evans is not washed. I won't like repeat everything that we said on the show with Theo last week, but yeah, essentially he has looked amazing in our separation score data for the last couple of years, including last year. Baker Mayfield didn't play well last year. I just trust Kyle Shanahan to get production out of any wide receiver one. He can just choose a guy and he will make him productive. I think he can easily do that with Mike Evans. Even if the roster is kind of falling apart around them and has to be more of, we're just going to run a ton of plays to have a functional offense or to put up points. We have seen Shanahan do that at certain points last year and it largely worked. So yeah, I don't see a reason to expect anything different as long as Evans does stay healthy. Like this is a massive win for redraft. I don't know. I don't have a good handle on where his redraft ADP is going to end up. I imagine pretty high. Davante Adams was like a 3-4 turn-ish pick for most of last season. I would be all right with Evans being there. If he's cheaper, I'll probably be even more in and excited about it. But yeah, as I said, if you acquired him in the last week, you should be pretty happy right now.
Yeah, I'm still buying. I'll still be buying. A lot of back and forth talk about how this affects Ricky Pearsall. I'm still not sure Ricky Pearsall is a real NFL player. But he obviously had the hot start last year, and then more injuries piled up because, again, of course they did on this team.
I'll just say, really quick, I'm a projectable volume bro when it comes to Ricky Pearsall. Like, if you're a Ricky Pearsall fan, I'm the guy you don't want around in the same way that Jacob doesn't want the Bashal Tootin projectable volume bros around. Pearsall's dead to me at this point, for this year at least, or realistically for dynasty value, given what his career has looked like so far. I don't have any particular belief in him as a player. And if Evans is there, I just lose all interest. Like I had a consensus on Pearsall in the early offseason just because I don't think people really came around to the idea very quickly of he could be legit the only receiver on this roster. But now that he's not, I don't care at all about him.
Yeah, I think I still think Evans is a pretty big risk because he's so old and he has these recent injury issues. So I don't know if I'm fully off of Pearsall. It's a great landing spot for Evans. All of my issues with Evans would just be old, injured. There's risk. But I'll be price sensitive on him depending on how much it rises, but it's realistically an excellent landing spot. He should be in line to catch a ton of touchdowns from one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL, and even be able to dominate target volume. So the upside on him is extreme. It's maybe even higher than the upside was in the Davante Adams season last year because there's no Puka Nacua there. So he has legitimate like low end wide receiver 1 upside in a big way.
I love it. Last wide receiver we're really going to talk. We're not talking about Josh Naylor. So if that's what you came to this program for, wrong one. Let's talk about one of my favorites.
You called him the baseball player, Josh.
Oh,
Naylor.
I'm sorry.
Jalen
I'm
Naylor.
sorry. Could anybody
You've been spending
really?
too much time watching the World Baseball Classic.
Everyone that knows me knows that I am a baseball guy first, even with football. But I did cross that up. Also, our guys tried hard, but let's never let Paxton throw another pitch for Team Canada, can we? That was really, really, really brutal. But let's talk about Wan'Dale Robinson, Market Report favorite, one of mine and Andy Buckler's favorite ads over the last 2 seasons. He just produces in that PPR scam role, gets to reunite with the head coach that kind of made that possible. I love the fit. I'm going to be buying Wan'Dale often, even though his quarterback is Cam Ward. I think Dabble can really get the best out of him. We know he's a good offensive play caller. We know he's a good coach. $78 million over 4 years, 38 guaranteed. This is wide receiver 1 money for them. So I think his skill set's a little redundant with some guys on the roster, but I'm guessing they just view him as just outright better and the right guy. I love this. I can't speak on this enough for my fantasy stocks anyway. I want to hear your guys' takes. Ground me a little bit because I really, really like this. So, Jacob,
I mean, for real life, this is to me preposterous. This is like absolute like roster building malpractice. Like the Wan'Dale Robinson rumors that I was seeing out there were astounding to me, and he can't play outside because he can't beat press because he's like 5'6". And then if you play him in the slot, you're sacrificing any potential blocking from that position, be it a second tight end or a bigger slot wide receiver. I don't know. I think he's such a bizarre fit that shouldn't be a full-time player in the NFL. But he is going to be because they gave him $78 million. And to his credit, when he does play on a full-time basis in the NFL, he is very fantasy friendly because he can just soak up a bunch of those intermediate level targets. So I do think he's going to be startable next year. Cam Ward has had rapport with this type of wide receiver. I mean, think of what he did with Xavier Restrepo at Miami, just peppering the slot over and over and over again. So I think it's a great fantasy landing spot for Wan'Dale. They have no wide receivers at all. They might go wide receiver at 4, but I think that that's a reach. I think that they're going to enjoy higher ranked consensus players there. And so if it's Wan'Dale and an early day 2 wide receiver, and like, I don't know, maybe they bring back Calvin Ridley, or it's like whoever the winner is of Chimere DK versus Alec Eomanor for the 3rd spot. Like Wan'Dale Robinson is fully en route to getting his 3rd consecutive season of 140 targets, and can definitely be a fantasy wide receiver 2/3. It's just, it's alarming to me that Wan'Dale Robinson was given $78 million, but it is what it is.
Fun fact, Wan'Dale Robinson's 13.6 points per game were more than Michael Wilson and Jameson Williams and Tetaroa McMillan last season. Not saying, just saying. I'm all over this. I'm going to try to have like 50% rostership when it's all said and done. He's just my perfect style flex play to me. I really like this move. Now, this can go south if Cam Ward continues to be unplayable. But again, I really like the coach hiring. I think that's what really makes it. To me, one of my biggest concerns last year was play calling on the Titans. The coaching situation. We talked about it at length. I am now not really worried about that. But Ryan, on Wan'Dale, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, even if Cam Ward is not amazing, like I think Wan'Dale's probably still fine. You saw Chimere DK was like the closest thing to a playable or relevant wide receiver in Tennessee for at least like the second half of last year. I just kind of think that the slot PPR scam is undefeated, almost regardless of what the quarterback play is like. And yeah, Wan'Dale's gonna keep doing his thing. Is pretty much where I'm at. Another like, it's anticlimactic for fantasy. Almost anything would have been for Wan'Dale Robinson because he just is the anticlimax personified. But it is climactic in terms of pissing Jacob off. So that I appreciate it for that at least.
Like it never pisses me off when the Titans do bad things with their money. I mean, if there's one thing I can rely on is that as dumb as we are of a useless, rudderless ship of an organization, the Titans will continue to be more rudderless.
God, division on division hate here. I really like this for fantasy. His price is going to definitely go up, but I mean, go up how far? You're never going to have to pay a 1 for somebody like Wan'Dale. He's just probably just going to become a little more annoying to acquire, but I am trying to, trust me. Wait a little bit though. I'm not going out and buying these guys for the most part immediately after signing. We know how the peaks and valleys of Dynasty work. So keep your eye on that for sure. Let's quickly talk about tight end. I think there is 2 tight ends that I really think are relevant. We always got Travis Kelce coming back. I actually didn't expect this at all. Travis Kelce coming back on a 1-year, $12 million deal, obviously with Kansas City. I like, he's like a cheap tight end like option. His peak days are obviously way gone, but this is best case scenario for him. So not a whole lot here to add. The real tight end news is Isaiah Likely very predictably follows Harbaugh over to New York with the Giants. We've got is a pretty decent contract, almost identical to the Mark Andrews deal. The Ravens definitely kept the wrong one. We got $40 million, 4 years for Isaiah Likely. That is a great deal. Jacob,
breaking news.
I saw
the
that.
Seattle Seahawks have retained Rashid Shaheed, 3 years, $51 million. That's the best deal for me of any of these free agent wide receivers. I think that is a fantastic piece of work by the Seahawks. I wish that in his first full year with the team, they actually use him as an every down wide receiver, but I think he's worth every penny. I think he'd be worth $5 million a year if all he did was return kicks and punts. And so then you're only paying him $12 million a year for also being a pretty dang good wide receiver. I really like that. I wish he went somewhere that was a little bit more fun for fantasy than having to have like 4 gadgety targets a game behind JSN. But I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting to see if the role develops, but you're right. He's kind of handcuffed there. Would have liked to, again, any of the fantasy friendly spots would have been really nice. But Isaiah Likely, Jacob, you finally get your wish. You've been begging for this, praying for this day to come. But Theo Johnson appears to be
I never have to hear about Theo Johnson again. Yes. It's a great day to not have to hear about Theo Johnson. The Isaiah Likely thing, I think the idea of Isaiah Likely has always been a little bit more fun than the reality of Isaiah Likely. Like he makes these flashy plays where you're like, man, like what if that guy could be a total monster? But over a long sample, his ability to earn targets is actually not really that great. He has serious blocking limitations. He has some athletic limitations. So I don't know that this is a deal that I love again from a real life standpoint. But maybe it's just a team that's trying to go heavier and basically putting Isaiah Likely in like what used to be where Wan'Dale Robinson resided essentially, and adding some juice that way seems fine to me. I think he should get closer to the 70 to 75% route range now, whereas he was down in the 40 to 60 range in his time with Baltimore. I think he's like a high-end tight end 2, fringe tight end 1, but there are still some serious limitations where he just can't be your inline guy, and Theo Johnson can. And so I think that there will still be more of a split than maybe people want there to be.
Yeah, especially with Bellinger signing elsewhere.
Yeah, that was a weird one, by the way, because Helm is like a totally fine Y. I was surprised that they went after him.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. He's somebody I really liked like years ago and then just completely gave up on. Interesting to see what they do with him now. But Ryan, anything to add here with Likely? I agree with everything you said, Jacob. I watched him for years here, obviously. Limitation is putting it politely. But Ryan, do you have anything to add here with him?
I do, actually. I have a pretty solid Isaiah Likely take here that has nothing to do with him and everything to do with this draft class. I've been writing up my prospect profiles on these tight ends over the past handful of days. Those will be out eventually on fantasypoints.com if you want to read them. But there are a lot of Isaiah Likely type players in this draft class. Like there's the Justin Jolies, there's the Michael Triggs. Like there are all of these kind of like meme player receiving tight ends that can be fun in theory, but that are probably most of the time like 40 to 60% route share players, unless they're in like the perfect situation and the coach that like wants to maximize them. I don't, why, if you're the Giants, why are you paying Likely $40 million instead of just drafting one of these guys? And I would put the same thing to all of you as dynasty managers. If you're like an Isaiah Likely guy and this got you really fired up, I would just spend a 3rd round rookie pick on one of these tight ends, because at least one of those guys is like the next Isaiah Likely, where he has these dynasty value spikes because he gets on the field for a handful of games and looks kind of good, but maybe isn't going to maintain a full-time role over a long sample. I just think you can find a lot of those types of players in this draft class. And I think that's what NFL teams should do if they're interested in like the Isaiah Likely services. And it's what you should do if you're interested in those types of services for your dynasty team, rather than buying on the, I know everybody that has Isaiah Likely like is the Isaiah Likely guy in your league. So it's not as if anybody's selling Isaiah Likely today. But that's what I would do if you're intrigued by this at all. Just earmark that rookie 3rd, that rookie 4th for one of those tight ends.
Yeah, it's just so completely predictable that he lands with Harbaugh and Greg Roman and now Nagy. I think he can be a useful player on your team. Just again, not someone I'm very excited about. I'd rather play Travis Kelce way cheaper than someone like Isaiah Likely, if that makes sense. That's where I'm at with him. Just a complete dead zone tight end, in my opinion. We're still waiting on big news from like Goddard and Njoku. I think there's going to be more exciting tight end talk down the road. There's really only 1 or 2 players left here. We're going to hit on these really quick. Tua signed league minimum in Atlanta. Not even sure he's going to get the chance to start. But he could, and that could definitely drastically affect fantasy values around him, but I'm hoping he doesn't start, and I hope we get more Penix if his knees could ever hold up through a season in the NFL. But the real winner here, Malik Willis, rumored to be the guy in Arizona, ends up going to Miami, cheaper than I thought. 3 years, $67.5 million. I believe that this is, again, another one of those could be an extension, decision to be made type contracts in 2028 if things do go well. My biggest downside with Willis is that his play caller is not coming with him. And that's my concern. The team is definitely not as good as the one he is leaving, but the rushing provides the floor. And that's what we really like. I'm more inclined to sell Malik Willis after this news. I'm definitely trying to net a 1 for him, and that's coming from somebody who was playing Phillip Rivers in finals last year. So I'm definitely more inclined to get out. I think this is also, if you had hopes for Jalen Waddle, your hope now completely relies on a trade, in my opinion. I'm not going to trust consistency with Malik Willis. I want to hear what you guys say, because I liked Willis when he was cheap. I liked Willis when he was free and off the waivers. I don't know if I'm going to like Willis at his new price. Even in startups pre this signing, I had seen him jump into like the 7th and even into the 6th round in startups. And I am just so out. And I need to know if I'm right or wrong here. So I'll start with you, Jacob.
Do you know how many is the most passes Malik Willis ever thrown in an NFL game?
18.
I think it's
I think it's 23.
14. Oh, okay. I was going lower.
I believe it's 23, but it's still that being his most is like 7 passes short of what would still be a bottom tier passing volume offense on a per game basis, right? If you're not cracking 30 per game, you're finding yourselves probably in the bottom 3 of the PROE charts, and that would be a new career high 17 times in a row for Malik Willis. I think that the Dolphins did honestly quite well here from a real life signing. Do I think Malik Willis is going to turn into a franchise quarterback? I don't. But has he shown some really impressive tape in spurts with Green Bay? Yes. And importantly, I think they checked 2 huge marks with this contract. First is that there's not that much guaranteed money. It's basically 1.5 years of this are guaranteed, and the cap hit is low at $22 million. So if the downside risk is not that bad, if it sucks this year, they can get out of it without too much pain down the road. And the bigger thing to me is that they also get a ton of reward because it's a 3-year contract. So if it hits, they get this year and 2 more at $22.5 million average annual value, which if it's a huge hit is a massive win. That's like less than half of what true franchise quarterbacks are getting. So props to Miami getting this done. But I mostly agree with Tom. I don't think this winds up working out that well. I would need a first for sure to get off Malik Willis. I'm not trading him for less than a first because I think he's going to be very redraft friendly. And I think that there's a legitimate upside case that is worth more to me than, I don't know, taking a stab on like Emmett Johnson at my 203. So I'll put him on the block where I don't need a quarterback. If someone wants to give me a 1, great. I will take that as my payoff for him sitting on my roster all these years collecting dust. But I think there's at least some chance it works. And the upside for fantasy is pretty darn high if he's able to hold on a job. He's going to run a lot. Oh, I agree with, by the way, on Tom. Terrible for Jalen Waddle. And I think also very terrible for Devon Etienne, even though the zone read stuff they do will be pretty fun to watch in real life.
Yeah, especially Ryan, you're the Etienne guy. So let's get the read of the room here from you with Willis.
Yeah, we're praying Etienne gets traded, essentially. It's the only reason I still have him as like the Dynasty RB5 is that he could get traded. Or that more realistically that this could... Don't even say that to me. Oh, my God.
I've been saying all day I think Etienne gets traded. I just have this weird feeling he gets traded.
He gets a nice
Could you imagine?
extension.
Could you imagine traded to the Chargers for... and then the entire internet goes
that would
insane.
Be horrible for everyone.
I know.
Involved.
I
don't think he's gonna get. I don't think he's gonna get traded. I think he's gonna get a nice fat extension.
Yeah, so the day he signs the extension, I'm probably moving him to wherever I have Breece Hall or something like that. That's a little dramatic, but that's like how I feel in my core. Because I don't want any part of this offense for fantasy aside from Willis, who can be fun and fantasy friendly for all the reasons Jacob outlined. It's a small sample, obviously, because he doesn't drop back very much, but leads all quarterbacks in fantasy points per drop back was a stat that Scott Barrett was tweeting out today as if it means something, which it kind of does for fantasy. It kind of does. But yeah, it's pretty bleak here in Miami. I'll give it a week for the HN trade, and then I'm lowering him down the ranks. Is basically how I'm gonna treat it.
That's fair. I don't know. I can see the NFL, just nothing surprises me, and I think my biggest takeaway is I think the NFL is telling us what they think about this draft class with a lot of these moves. I had a short conversation with Rich Rebar about that, how we think it's very much a reflection of the NFL's opinion of the draft class. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's still lots of time. We're recording this on day 1. By the time this gets released, some things could have changed. There's potential one of these contracts gets bailed out on and they sign elsewhere. Remember, it's just the tampering period. None of these things are final. I'm sure we're going to have even more news by Wednesday when this gets released, when you're watching and or listening to this. So just keep that in mind. This is an exciting time. It was a lot of fun. Way harder to keep up with than I had anticipated. I'll tell you that much. And way more trades than I had expected from the NFL. It felt more like an NBA day or an MLB day than it did an NFL day with all of the trades. I will just mention quick, just for my own sake, little interesting that I got to witness a little bit of Ravens history. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, but this is the first time the Baltimore Ravens have ever traded their first-round pick for a player outright, let alone 2 first-round picks. They have traded down in drafts. They have never outright traded a first-round pick for a player, and they did that. So I don't know if that's means Zay Flowers, you're staying because they don't have a 27 first anymore. But I don't know. It was kind of fun, kind of exciting. Not going to sit here and talk about it a lot, but just a little bit of history there, a little bit of fun. That being said, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like the video, subscribe. Obviously, we have a ton of content coming out. I mean, just Dynasty Points alone, we are starting our march to the draft. Here, we always do a bunch of rookie-centered programs, lots of guests, so we're starting that process here coming up. You're not going to want to miss that. And obviously, all the other great content between the crossover episodes with Theo Grimminger and us, and then, of course, the Dynasty Life podcast and videos as well. Like the channel, leave a comment, let us know what your favorite move is. A lot of people interested in the Brian Thomas Jr. sweepstakes when I posted the poll here on the YouTube channel. A lot of people interested in the Ken Walker stuff. So obviously, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Thanks for rocking with us again for another Dynasty Points episode. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose, that your best days are always spent tilting.